Ladies and gentlemen, the Tiny DevOps guy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of Tiny DevOps for this new second quarter of 2022. I'm really excited about today's episode because I've recently come across what might be the most exciting advancement, if you will, in DevOps and in Agile in probably years, maybe longer. And what's better is I have the author of this new amazing framework on the show today to help explain it and explain to you why you should start using this new framework. Bryan Finster, welcome again. You're the second time guest on this podcast. So welcome back. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm deeply honored, John. Thank you.
Great. And for those of you who are not watching the video, Bryan is wearing an amazing T-shirt that touts the benefits of Git flow. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, Git flow is the ultimate branching strategy for when you need to deliver eventually.
I love it. I love it. So Bryan, tell us about this framework that you've invented. What's it called, and what does it do for us?
Well, there's a lot of scaling frameworks out there for trying to scale Agile or scale DevOps, but the one thing that all of them have in common is they're incredibly expensive. So I thought, what if we came up with just something that was more nimble than a lot of them, but also cheaper. And so we came up with scaledagiledevops.com, and it lays out all the things that you need to do to really drive for real DevOps.
That's really good. So it's Scaled Agile DevOps. Is that the full name?
Yes.
Do we have an abbreviation?
Oh, there's a shortened version for people who, like me, have trouble spelling. Is sadmf.com.
Sadmf. I think I can remember that one. Sadmf. Okay. So the idea here is that scaling Agile and scaling DevOps is complicated and expensive if you go through all the trainings and all the certifications. So now you don't have to. You can get, I guess, the same or more benefits through this framework for less cost. Is that how that works?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the things you really need to know without all the fluff, and so of course the cost is less.
Nice. So let's talk about some of the things that this framework provides.
The thing that really differentiates, there's like a really popular scaling framework out there that has release trains, to make sure that all of the things deliver at the same time on this release train. But the weakness with the train is it's not very agile because it can't turn. And so what we have done is we've come up with the Release Convoy. That's the central theme of what we have is the Release Convoy. Because with the Convoy, yes, it's large and cumbersome, but you can also turn. And so it's more agile.
That's amazing. So just by changing the metaphor, yes, you're able to...
You become more agile, exactly, yes.
That's such a simple change, but so profound. So I imagine, good Agile is always surrounded with ceremonies and rituals. What kind of rituals and ceremonies are involved in the Convoy?
Well, so with the Release Convoy, there's several. And I won't go through all of them because I think that we don't want to they could just go to the website and read them. But I think that some of the ones that I think are most important. You have the captain's mast, right? And to be clear, this is a naval convoy. This is not convoy with trucks. This is ships, right?
Good clarification.
That's important, and and the logo I think on the site reflects that as well.
Yeah.
Right. But the captain's mast, right, and I'll just read it because it's short, and this is a ceremony where anyone who wishes to change priorities set in convoy alignment files a PCR to represent it to change for approval, so that the signals officer can adjust the completed versus committed goals of the convoy to ensure it does not reflect poorly on the Commodore who's leading the convoy. So you have to file, it's really to make sure that we don't make have the metrics make the leader look bad because we've changed priorities.
Okay. That's really
Uh,
good.
yeah, and of course you've got the scrum of scrums, right? To make sure that we effectively
Because
communicate things.
I mean, everybody knows that Scrum is good, so more of it is better.
Yeah, more scrum, right? And so basically at your scrum meeting, you elect a tribute
Hmm.
to go to the Scrum of Scrum meetings, and from that group also elects a tribute to go to the Scrum of Scrum meetings to communicate everything,
Hmm.
right?
That's
To,
good.
to to make sure the broader organization knows what's going on.
Now,
May
does
the
that
odds be
scale
forever in your favor.
does that scale infinitely? I mean, if you have a big enough organization, could you have a Scrum of Scrum of Scrum of Scrum of Scrums?
Oh, I'm sure. Yes,
Yeah.
it just nests
Uh-huh.
because
Fractal,
really,
right? So you could just go as far as you need to.
yeah, those meetings are super important.
Hmm. Hmm. Awesome.
But I think the most important thing, right, is there's lots of principles in DevOps. One of those is build quality in,
Hmm.
right? And so in scaled agile DevOps, we recognize that there's certain things that cause poor quality, and that to build quality in, we need to relentlessly remove the things that cause poor quality. And so for that, we have the Tribunal. And in the Tribunal ceremony, what we do is after every convoy is deployed, we identify the person who created each defect, and we offer them opportunities to explore other opportunities outside of our organization. So that way, by relentlessly removing the things that cause poor quality, we increase the quality overall.
That sounds so simple. Again, so simple yet so profound.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and
amazing others haven't thought of this already.
yeah, well, and and to psychological safety is also incredibly important,
Of course.
right? And because we're identifying who is creating each defect, we can automate the HR effort of offering them new opportunities outside the organization. And
Hmm.
that reduces any sort of conflict that a manager might have by asking them to leave, and improves the psychological safety of the leadership.
And that, of course, is important because psychological safety, as we all know, just sort of trickles down.
Absolutely.
And if the boss is happy, everybody else is happy too. That's why we give the boss a new car every couple of years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So one of the things that really struck me when I was first looking into SADMF, well, first some background. I mean, we know there's thousands of certifications out there for all sorts of things, and there's some really
Mhm.
popular ones among Agile practitioners. Uh, but would you say that it's true that the SADMF certification badges, at least the ones I've seen as displayed on LinkedIn, are immediately recognizable as representing a certification?
Absolutely. They
Yeah.
uh, they they exemplify the value of certifications.
So, I mean, if anybody's concerned that maybe my boss won't recognize that this is a certification, I would bet my last dollar that when they see that badge, they'll know it's a certification.
Yeah, that you're absolutely sad enough.
Yeah, that's awesome. What if somebody listening is already certified in some other framework? Should they consider getting this? I mean, they've already paid that cost, so should they consider getting this certification too?
Well, I mean, they've paid that cost, but our framework, just like most of those other frameworks, is versioned.
Oh,
So the certifications expire when the versions change, and you need to get recertified in the next version. But again, because our framework boils it down to just the stuff that's very, very important, and we can keep the cost low, which means it's less expensive as we continue to version and collect those certification fees.
mm-hmm. That's great. I
So,
don't.
if they have a certification now, they would still have to go and recertify in their current
Mm-hmm.
framework. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that we're a less expensive option.
Great. What are the users of SADMF saying? What kind of positive feedback have you gotten? I'm sure it's only been positive.
Oh, executives love SADMF. I mean, one of the key things about SADMF is it enables enterprise transformation without risking culture change,
Uh huh.
right? And so that makes it easy to adopt by executives, and they love it. We get
Yeah.
rave reviews about how easy it is to take their current system and then apply SADMF to the current system, and business as usual.
So you basically change a few names, give some people new titles. Like I love that Commodore title, by the way. That's just I would love to become a Commodore.
Yeah. I mean, the Commodore title, there's several titles that align to a hierarchy that makes people very comfortable,
Mm-hmm. That's
right?
great. So we talked about the positive feedback. What are stupid idiots saying when they don't like this? I mean, what kind of stupid crap do you hear from idiots?
Oh no, because the tribunal helps resolve that problem, right? There's no stupid idiots left because the tribunal offers them external opportunities.
That is so clever. I don't know why I hadn't thought of that myself.
Right? I mean, it's just continuously improving the organization.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite features of SADMF is that it really makes simple. It provides some clear, simple to measure metrics, which I have no doubt would make any manager's life seem easier immediately. How did you come up with these metrics?
Oh, from experience, for example, lines of code per coder, individual developer productivity is incredibly important for organizational outcomes. And so by measuring how many lines of code each coder delivers, we have those key leading indicators for organizational outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Along with defects created by coder, which is incredibly important input for the tribunal.
Right.
And of course the SADMF maturity score for how well you're executing the scaled Agile DevOps maturity framework. That is a core metric that must be tracked.
Right. I just have a couple more questions. I mean, I think I could talk for hours about this because it's such an engaging topic,
Okay.
but we need to keep it short for a podcast. So I just have a couple more quick questions. I really like that SADMF mandates a quality authority, or what you call it, I think a QA team, which I thought it was just brilliant, the way that alleviates the need for coders to really have to think about user requirements. They can just focus on their code.
I agree. I mean, it increases developer productivity if they don't have to worry about, is this really what's needed or is it working correctly, right? As long as all developers have to do is just type code, their productivity just skyrockets.
Yeah, exactly. So you did mention that SADMF is versioned, and I think right now you're at version 2.5. Do you have any big changes coming up for the next version?
If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise.
That's true.
But we continue to refine our framework as we go along, and of course, a major release, I'm sure, will be coming soon. Look for 3.0.
Okay.
And
So,
all of our all of our SAD certified 2.5 practitioners and fellows out there, make sure, keep track. 3.0 comes out. Open your pocketbooks.
now, but that's not to deter anybody who might want to get 2.5 certified. You'll take their money twice, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, you've got to start.
Yeah.
I mean, the best time to spend money was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today.
Right. And that really brings me to what might be the most important question here. And that is, Bryan, what personal value have you gotten from this framework?
Well, we have an international community of certified practitioners and fellows, and that has allowed me to buy at least 2 bottles of bourbon.
Cheers to that.
Frameworks are stupid, right? I mean, frameworks solve someone else's problems. And, the reality is that a lot of everything, honestly, everything in here is a not very far distantly removed thing that actually happens in some organization. And this has come from things that I've experienced. This has come from things that friends of mine have experienced. And if you just read and think about some of these things, you can recognize some of these behaviors in organizations. Every single one of these. None of these is based off of, oh yeah, that would be terrible if somebody did that. It's like, no, it's terrible someone's doing this.
Right.
And in any framework, yes, this framework here is complete satire, but any framework is designed to solve somebody else's problem. In some cases, it's designed to solve the problem of, I don't have a Tesla yet, so I need to sell a framework, right?
Yes.
But frameworks don't solve your problems. What solves the problems are our organization is focused on delivering some value to somebody. How do we improve our ability to do that? How do we remove the constraints from the flow of value delivery? How do we organize better so that we can do that without incurring extra cost and bureaucracy process, having kingdoms inside your organization and treating each other as adversaries. These add cost and reduce your value delivery. They don't help you and they don't help the end user. And so how do we reorganize things and remove processes that don't add value, add automation for things that are taking people with brains and having them do just toilsome activities that make no sense, right? And it's completely contextually organization. You don't need an Agile certification to get this done. You need to understand what Agile actually is. It's trying to overcome the problem that the requirements are wrong or we misunderstood them or they're going to change before we can deliver. And that's just the reality of every product. It's not even software. It's just everything. If we're developing new products, those three things are true. Go watch the the Simpsons episode where Homer designs the Homer car and bankrupts his brother because the requirements are wrong or misunderstood or changed before he delivered, right? I mean, this is just the reality of it. And all you need to do is say, how do we find out as rapidly as possible how wrong we are about this thing that we're trying to deliver?
Yeah.
And solve that problem. How do we get that feedback as rapidly as possible? That's the only framework you need. How do we get feedback as rapidly as possible?
I think that framework is called the scientific method, if I'm not mistaken.
It may be. And in software delivery, the implementation of that is actual continuous delivery. If you want a real website, there's another website that I contribute to that's minimumcd.org. And it talks about these are the behaviors that are the minimum viable continuous delivery. And if you solve the problem of why can't we do these behaviors, it will improve your organization.
Yes, and of course, that was the topic of our previous conversation a few months ago. We'll have a link to that in the show notes, of course, if anybody missed that. So yeah, if your boss is like addicted to frameworks, give them that one and tell them that minimum CD is a framework, and it really isn't. But maybe if you squint enough, it looks like one.
Or you can just tell them you're SAD certified, right? Look, I have a certification with Scaled Agile DevOps Maturity Framework, so I know what I'm doing.
Exactly. Nice. Do you have any advice, Bryan, for anybody who is in an organization that is using a framework that's not working? What can they do?
Subvert it in small ways, right? Identify things that don't make sense and ask questions. Suggest improvements. Hey, we're in PI planning and we're assigning stories to everybody for the next quarter. Well, what if we focused on trying to get a thing done as a team, and the team focused on delivering something as a team, so that in case this person here that the story is assigned to in week 5 of the quarter is not available, it still gets done. We're still able to deliver things. Just small improvements over time. Find more allies who want to help make things better. Don't try to tear down the framework. Just tear it down a little at a time.
Really good advice. And ironically, that's the same thing I suggest people do if you're not using a framework. Fix one thing at a time.
Yeah. And it's amazing. If you just go, hey, we're going to make one thing better every single day, suddenly things are just better.
Yeah. It's complicated, but it's not. It's complex, but it's not complicated, right? There's so many moving parts in building software, and the complicated ones are the people you're working with. But getting better is not. You don't need a fancy, complicated system. You just need to improve one thing at a time.
And the truth of this is that you don't need a transformation office. That's telling me that you think that this is a project where there's a beginning and an end, right? And this takes time. You can't just say, we've got this scaling framework for Agile, and we bought Jenkins, and next year we're going to be DevOps because we have a DevOps team. All of those things are wrong.
Exactly.
It takes organizational improvement takes time. It's adjusting the culture. It's adjusting how we work. It's learning as we go because it's only contextual to our organization. You can't buy it. There are no silver bullets, except Scaled Agile DevOps Maturity Framework, which was absolutely a silver bullet. It'll solve all your problems. Just send me money.
Right.
There's enterprise licensing as well. It's work, but it's worthwhile because not only does it help us deliver things better, help our bottom line, but it also helps everybody in the organization. It becomes a more humane place to work. People want to work there. You attract top talent. And you retain good people because it's just a better way of working for everybody.
I agree. I don't think I can argue with you on that one. One last question, Bryan.
Yeah.
I saw a comment on LinkedIn responding to somebody, probably you, posting about your framework. And they pointed out the sad irony that SADMF has different connotations in American English than in other dialects. Was that intentional?
So can I tell you a little bit of a story about how this came to be?
Absolutely.
So I'm a member of the Dojo Consortium, the Enterprise Dojo Consortium, which is a group of people who work on dojos in their companies. So it's a training for how to deliver better for teams. And we had a conference in 2019 with Kent Beck was there. It was amazing, right? And it was very small. There's like 60 of us there. And at the end of it, we're like, great, we have a conference and we're talking to each other. How do we help the rest of the industry? And we had a board Post-its everywhere of the ideas of how to help the industry. And a website came from that and other outreach items came from that. And I said, but while we were standing there, I was like, what we really need is a scaling framework. And of course, people started throwing things at me. But then at dinner, Ross Clanton, who's currently VP at American Airlines, and Ross started the Target Dojo at Target, right? And so he's deep into this. And then I was sitting there next to Ross at dinner, drinking beer, and Ross said, "Scaled Agile DevOps Maturity Framework, so you too can be a SADMF." And I went, Ross, that's brilliant. And as soon as I got home, I registered the URL. Now, and that was 2019, and I've been very busy. But this past year, I started working on this content. And so all credit to Ross Clanton for that idea. Yeah.
Thanks, Ross. All right, Bryan, anything you'd like to add before we sign off today?
Just to repeat, look, the rules are how do we make things better? That's the rules. The reality is that we're probably wrong, and the sooner we find out that we're wrong, the faster we're not wrong. Just focus on helping people instead of trying to impose rules on people that don't work.
Great. Well, thanks again, Bryan. The website is scaledagiledevops.com. You can also visit minimumcd.org. And how can people get in touch with you if they're interested?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm active out there ranting or putting my ideas out there. I also have a blog on Medium. It's the 5-Minute DevOps. And the URL's kind of clunky because it's my old user ID at Walmart, but it's bdfinst.medium.com.
All right. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks again, Bryan. I hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, John.
Cheers. Bye.